In the middle of the Karakum Desert, where no life survives and the night never ends, there's a fire that has been burning for over 50 years, a fire that whispers your name when the wind changes direction. They call it the door to hell. A massive crater in the barren sands of Turkmenistan, endlessly burning with flames that stretch toward a blackened sky. Locals say it's more than a gas pit. It's a gateway, a scar on earth where the veil between the living and the damned is torn open. In 1971, Soviet geologists were drilling for natural gas when the ground gave way beneath their machinery, swallowing everything in a thunderous collapse. The desert floor cracked open into a pit nearly 70 meters wide, and toxic gas began leaking out. Fearing an explosion, they decided to set the gas on fire, believing it would burn for a few days. That was half a century ago. The flames never went out. As the years passed, nearby villages began to vanish. Travelers who approached the crater reported strange voices, shadowy figures circling the rim, and the sensation of being watched by something ancient, something patient. And tonight, we return to that desert, where science met something it could never explain. If you're a fan of global horror and dark legends from around the world, don't forget to subscribe and join our dark family. The story begins with Elias Ward, a British documentarian obsessed with unexplained phenomena. He'd filmed in haunted asylums and cursed temples, but nothing drew him in like the legend of the Darvaza Crater. Armed with cameras, a drone, and his translator Layla, Elias set out from Ashgabat toward the desert. As they drove deeper into the Karakum wasteland, the sand shimmered like molten glass, and the air grew heavy, filled with a faint metallic taste. When they reached the crater, Elias felt his stomach twist. The ground pulsed with heat, and a low hum filled the air. The pit was alive, a roaring mouth of fire that seemed to breathe in rhythm with the wind. Layla refused to go closer. She whispered, "The ground remembers. The fire feeds on more than gas." Ignoring her warnings, Elias descended toward the rim with his camera rolling. The microphone picked up low frequencies, almost like chanting beneath the roar of the flames. The closer he got, the more the sound separated into distinct voices, crying, begging, screaming. When he reviewed the footage that night in his tent, he froze. In the audio waveform, embedded in the white noise, was his own name. Elias. Elias. At first he thought it was interference, but the voice grew clearer each night, distorted, echoing from somewhere below the flames. On the third night, Layla vanished. Her footprints led toward the crater and stopped at the edge. Her scarf was found half-burned, fluttering on a rock near the rim. Elias, desperate, flew his drone over the pit to search for her. The drone's infrared camera detected movement inside the fire, human-shaped silhouettes walking in slow circular motion beneath the flames. The data feed flickered with bursts of static, but for a moment he saw her, Layla's face staring up from the center of the inferno, her mouth open in a silent scream. He dropped the controller. The desert wind howled like laughter. That night, Elias recorded one final entry in his field journal. "The voices are clearer now. They speak in every language. They tell me what lies beneath is not burning, it's waiting." The next morning, his camp was empty. Only his camera remained, still recording. The lens faced the crater, capturing hours of firelight, until something moved in front of it. A dark, ash-covered hand reaching out of the flames. The footage ended with a whisper. "One more for the fire." Weeks later, a rescue team from Turkmenistan found Elias's abandoned jeep near the crater. Inside were 5 identical recordings, each labeled "Door." On every tape, the same final sound played, a low rhythmic pounding, like a heartbeat echoing from deep underground. Locals now say the flames of Darvaza grow higher every few years, as if the pit itself is breathing in new souls. The Japanese demon well, the abyss of Oiwa, where the next gate of hell is said to open beneath Tokyo's forgotten shrines. In the heart of Tokyo, beneath glass towers and neon lights, there is a sealed courtyard, fenced with iron and prayer scrolls. Beneath it lies an ancient well, so cursed that even the monks refuse to speak its name. They say if you drop a coin inside, you'll hear someone whisper it back. Japan is a land of balance, where modern life rises atop ancient spirits. But sometimes the past doesn't rest beneath the ground. Sometimes it waits. The Well of Oiwa lies beneath a forgotten shrine on the outskirts of Tokyo, said to be one of the many gates of hell scattered across the world. Portals where the living and the dead briefly share the same breath. Legend says that in the Edo period, a woman named Oiwa was betrayed by her husband and left to die in agony. In her final moments, she cursed him and the earth itself, so her rage would never fade. The well was built over her burial site, sealed by monks who believed it to be a direct wound into the underworld. Centuries later, the land was urbanized. A convenience store now stands near the ancient boundary. But the well was never moved. It sits, covered by concrete and chains, buried beneath the foundation of what is now an abandoned apartment building. Kazuo Tanaka, a struggling photographer in his late 20s, had heard the story from a friend in Tokyo's paranormal scene. He was desperate for recognition, something that would make his name known online. So when he heard whispers that the Oiwa well still existed beneath an abandoned complex, he knew it was his chance. With his camera, flashlight, and a small recorder, Kazuo entered the complex late one rainy night. The building's corridors were silent, except for the steady dripping of water from the ceiling. The walls were coated in black mold, and faint Japanese talismans hung upside down, their paper yellowed, their ink smeared. Down in the basement, the air grew colder. The concrete floor was cracked, revealing an iron lid embedded into the ground. On it were dozens of prayer seals, burnt and melted into the metal. Kazuo knelt beside it, brushing away the dust. The lid was warm to the touch. He laughed nervously and whispered into his recorder, "This is probably just an old story. No demons here, right?" Then, for the sake of drama, he dropped a coin through a tiny opening in the metal cover. The sound echoed deep, deeper than it should have, like it was falling into a bottomless pit. Then, after a few seconds, came a faint metallic sound and a whisper. "Thank you." Kazuo froze. His breath caught in his throat. The recorder picked up a strange frequency, almost like multiple voices layered on top of one another. He played it back. The whisper grew louder. "Come down. Join me." The next day, Kazuo's photos from the basement developed into something horrific. Each image showed the same thing, his reflection in the water puddles near the well, except the reflection wasn't him. The eyes were black, the mouth torn wider than humanly possible, and something long and hair-like floated behind it. He returned to the site at night, desperate to prove what he saw was real. But the seals were ripped off, and the iron lid was slightly open. A stench of rot and wet earth filled the room. Kazuo called out, "Oiwa-san, are you there?" Something moved below. The darkness inside the well pulsed like liquid. A pale hand reached up, pressing against the inside of the lid, fingers long, nails sharp like glass. Then a voice, soft, trembling, echoing through the chamber. "You took my coin, now take my place." The floor cracked, water gushed out, cold and black. Kazuo stumbled back as shadows poured from the cracks, twisting around him, whispering his name. His flashlight flickered, showing glimpses of her. Oiwa, her head tilted, face bloated and bruised, eyes weeping black liquid. The last thing captured on his recorder was a gurgled scream, followed by a faint splash, and then silence. 2 weeks later, Tokyo authorities sealed off the building after reports of sinkholes and gas leaks. Locals avoid the area entirely, especially at night, claiming they can hear coins dropping and women crying beneath the pavement. They say if you stand over the spot and listen carefully, you can still hear Kazuo's voice echoing from the depths, calling for help, but no one ever answers. The Devil's Throat, the Bulgarian cave that screams, where the earth itself howls with the voices of the lost. In the mountains of Bulgaria, there's a cave so deep that no one has ever found its end. Locals call it Dyavolskoto Gurlo, the Devil's Throat. They say if you shout inside it, your voice never comes back, because something down there swallows it whole. Deep within the Rhodope Mountains, hidden behind thick pine forests and eternal mist, lies one of the most terrifying natural wonders in Eastern Europe, the Devil's Throat Cave. This place has devoured more than just echoes. It has taken lives, swallowed entire rivers, and haunted generations with stories of people who never returned. Locals whisper that the cave isn't just a geological formation. It's a doorway, one of the many gates of hell scattered across the world, a place where the air hums with lost voices and the walls pulse like living flesh. The Descent. Our story begins with Nikolai, a Bulgarian geologist and mountaineer. For years he'd heard about the Devil's Throat, but he wasn't a believer in curses or folklore. He came for science, not superstition. He led a small team of 3 into the depths of the cave. The entrance was shaped like a gaping mouth, its jagged rock teeth dripping with water. The roar of an underground waterfall thundered within, echoing endlessly. They set up ropes and headlamps, descending into the belly of the mountain. The light from the surface quickly vanished, swallowed by the blackness. "Keep your radios on," Nikolai said. "No hero moves alone." But as soon as they entered the second chamber, one of the team members, Petar, froze. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. A faint wailing sound rippled through the air. It wasn't the waterfall. It was human. A woman's scream, distant yet everywhere. Their radios crackled with static. The cave seemed to breathe. The whispering walls. Hours passed. They reached a tunnel that locals called the Throat, where the underground river disappeared into a black abyss. No one knew where it led. Nikolai dropped a light stick into the water, but it vanished before reaching the bottom. Seconds later, the radio hissed, "Nikolai, come down." It was Petar's voice, but Petar was standing beside him. He turned to look, and Petar's face had gone pale. "That wasn't me," he muttered. The scream returned, this time louder, echoing through every passage, like the earth itself was crying. The cave vibrated beneath their feet. Their lamps flickered. On the wall, written in faint chalk, were words in Bulgarian. "Do not call the darkness by name." Petar's curiosity turned to terror. He backed away toward the tunnel. Then something grabbed his rope and pulled. He was yanked into the black pit, his screams drowned by the roaring waterfall. The others tried to reel him back, but the rope came loose, frayed as if it had been chewed. The River of Souls. Nikolai refused to leave without knowing the truth. He followed the tunnel, his light trembling on the walls. Strange symbols glowed faintly, faces distorted and screaming carved into the rock itself. At the bottom, he found a massive underground lake. The surface was mirror still, until bubbles broke it. And then, slowly, Petar rose to the surface, eyes open, expression blank. He was whispering something over and over. "It wants names. It wants us to remember." Behind him, a shape emerged, enormous, humanoid, formed from liquid shadow. Its mouth opened wide, and the cave itself screamed. The sound wasn't heard, it was felt. It tore through Nikolai's chest like claws. He dropped his flashlight, and in its brief flicker, he saw faces swirling inside the creature, dozens, hundreds, each frozen mid-screen. He turned to run, but the tunnel seemed to twist on itself. Every direction led back to the lake. The creature whispered again, "You called. Now stay." Days later, a rescue team entered the cave. They found only 2 helmets, a broken camera, and an audio recorder buried in mud. The recording lasted 6 minutes. The first minute was filled with rushing water. Then came Nikolai's voice. "It's not an echo, it's a mouth." And finally, a deep, thunderous scream that made even the rescuers turn pale. The devil's throat remains open, roaring day and night. Locals say that every spring new names appear carved into the cave's walls, names of people who never entered it. They say the cave already knows who's next. The Gwalen Sinkhole, the city that fell into the abyss. It didn't just swallow the earth, it swallowed the screams. Beneath Guatemala City, something ancient opened its eye, and the ground was only its first victim. The year was 2010. Guatemala City had seen storms before, heavy rains, hurricanes, floods. But that night, The rain fell like a curse. Lightning ripped the sky open, and thunder roared so violently that windows shattered across the old neighborhoods. People thought it was another storm, but below the trembling streets, the earth was shifting, hollowing itself from the inside. At 11:05 p.m. in Zone 2, the street began to sink, as if the city were exhaling its last breath. Witnesses said they heard a roar, not from thunder, but from below. And then, in the middle of the intersection, the ground opened. A perfect circle, 100 feet wide, 300 feet deep, appeared out of nowhere. Entire buildings vanished. A 3-story factory, a house, and 12 people swallowed whole by the black pit. To the officials, it was a natural disaster. But to those who saw it, they said it was something else entirely. Scene transition, soundscape, thunder, faint screams echoing from below. A rescue worker named Carlos Mendez was one of the first to arrive. He leaned over the edge with his flashlight, expecting to see rubble. Instead, he saw movement. Something was shifting at the bottom of the hole. He thought maybe survivors, until he noticed the light reflecting off what looked like bones, large and twisted, like no human skeleton ever seen. His radio crackled with static. "Carlos, what do you see down there?" But the static deepened, a whispering static, forming faint words. "Cuatro puertas, una alma para cada una." Then the line went dead. For decades, the locals spoke of this place, how the Mayans believed certain caves and wells were portals to Xibalba, the underworld. Priests warned that when the balance between the worlds weakens, the earth itself will open, as if hell is gasping for air. But this wasn't just a myth. Hours after the sinkhole appeared, satellite cameras detected heat signatures inside the pit. The readings matched volcanic temperatures, but no lava was found. Instead, the rescue team found symbols carved into the walls of the chasm, ancient glyphs glowing faintly in red. One symbol matched a mark seen before, on the stones near the Darvaza Crater in Turkmenistan. Carlos kept searching the site night after night, even after authorities closed it off. He became obsessed. He claimed he could hear voices beneath the city, chanting in a language he couldn't understand. On the 5th night, he recorded something. The sound was faint, but when slowed down, it formed words in Spanish. "Cuatro puertas, una alma para cada una." That's when the investigation took a dark turn, because according to global geological reports, 4 gates had opened in the last 50 years. The Darvaza Crater, Turkmenistan; the Well of Oiwa, Japan; the Devil's Throat Cave, Mexico; the Guatemala Sinkhole. Each formed precisely 50 years apart. Each claimed lives that were never found, and each emitted the same low-frequency vibration, a sound humans shouldn't hear, but somehow feel. A frequency scientists called the pulse of the abyss. Carlos's final footage was discovered days later. He was standing at the edge of the sinkhole, his camera trembling, his breathing shallow. The audio picked up a deep rumble from below. Then, through the fog and dust, something rose, a massive, blackened figure, covered in ash and burning veins of fire. Its face was made of the faces of those it had taken. Their mouths opened in unison, whispering his name. The tape ends with Carlos screaming, "It's not the ground, it's a mouth!" Then silence. Only the faint hum of the pulse of the abyss remained. Since that night, the site has been sealed, but strange tremors continue beneath the city. Some locals say they still hear whispers rising through the cracks, and if you press your ear to the ground, you can hear them too, counting down. The fourth gate is open, one more, and they walk among us. If you've made it this far, and you're one of those who feel the ground moving when you hear these stories, remember, maybe it's not the wind beneath you. Maybe it's the fifth gate. Subscribe to the channel if you're a lover of global horror, real legends, and terrifying myths. Join our dark family and prepare for what's coming next. Like the video, share it if you dare, and tell us in the comments which gate of hell should open next.